In the year 2087, Earth had changed a lot. Humans were no longer alone in the universe. They had met other beings from faraway stars and joined a big group called the Concord. This was like a club where different species worked together to keep peace and share knowledge. But being part of this club wasn't easy. Other aliens didn't always trust humans. Some thought humans were too wild, too quick to fight, and not ready to play nice with others. New Chicago was one of the busiest cities on Earth. Its streets buzzed with flying cars, glowing billboards, and people rushing to work. On this particular day, the city was quieter than usual. Everyone was talking about the trial happening downtown at the courthouse. A human police officer named Carl Dunbar stood accused of doing something very bad. He was said to have hurt an alien diplomat during a protest. The whole galaxy was watching closely because this case would show if humans could follow the rules of the Concord. Carl Dunbar was a tall man with broad shoulders and short brown hair. He had been a police officer for over 20 years. People who knew him said he was fair and kind, but also strong when he needed to be. His wife, Lisa, sat nervously in the front row of the courtroom. She held her hands tightly together as she waited for the trial to begin. Her eyes kept darting toward Carl, hoping he'd look at her, but his face was serious and focused. The courtroom itself was packed. Reporters scribbled notes on electronic tablets. Cameras hovered silently above the crowd, broadcasting the event, live across Earth and even to some alien worlds. There were aliens sitting in the back rows too, beings with shiny scales, glowing skin, and strange shapes that made them look nothing like humans. One of these aliens was a Vexari. The Vexari were insect-like creatures with long bodies, thin legs, and sharp mandibles. Their voices sounded like clicks and hums, translated into human words through special devices they wore around their necks. The Vexari diplomat involved in the case was named Krixlar. According to the prosecution, Krixlar had been leading a peaceful protest against new laws affecting trade between Earth and the Vexari home planet. Carl Dunbar, working as security that day, was supposed to make sure things stayed calm, but instead he allegedly attacked Krixlar, injuring him badly enough to require medical treatment. This act angered many aliens in the Concord, who saw it as proof that humans couldn't control their violent tendencies. The defense team argued differently. They claimed Carl acted in self-defense. According to them, Krixlar had shown signs of aggression and might have harmed someone else if Carl hadn't stepped in. However, there was a problem. The surveillance footage from the scene was incomplete. It cut off right before the incident happened, leaving both sides free to argue what really went down. As the judge entered the room, everyone stood up. Judge Evelyn Monroe was a stern-looking woman with gray hair pulled back into a tight bun. She carried herself with authority, her voice firm as she instructed everyone to sit. This court will now hear the case of Officer Carl Dunbar versus the Concord Diplomatic Council, she announced. Her words echoed through the silent room. The prosecutor, a man named Aaron Blake, started first. He spoke clearly, presenting evidence piece by piece. He showed clips of the protest, pointing out moments where Carl seemed tense and alert. Then came witness testimonies. Several bystanders described hearing shouting and seeing Carl move quickly toward Krixlar. One of the witnesses, a young woman named Clara Hayes, said she remembered thinking Carl looked angry. Another person, a man named Ron Miller, recalled hearing a loud crash just before the cameras stopped recording. When it was time for the defense to speak, Carl's lawyer, Diane Parker, took the stand. She reminded the court that the footage ended before anyone could see exactly what happened. Without clear proof, she argued, it wasn't fair to accuse Carl of wrongdoing. Diane also called her own witnesses, including another officer who had been nearby during the protest. This officer swore Carl only moved to protect himself after Krixlar lunged forward unexpectedly. While all this was going on, a small boy sat quietly in the back of the courtroom. No one paid much attention to him. He was dressed in simple clothes, a blue shirt and jeans, and his dark curly hair framed a thoughtful face. His name was Jamal, and he was 9 years old. Jamal lived with his foster mother, Marla Kent, who ran a small repair shop in the city. Marla had brought Jamal to watch the trial because she thought it might teach him something important about fairness and justice. Jamal wasn't like most kids his age. He loved tinkering with machines and gadgets. In fact, he spent hours in Marla's garage building strange contraptions out of spare parts. One of those inventions sat hidden in his backpack now, a small device he called a truth finder. It looked like a square box with blinking lights and wires sticking out of it. Jamal believed it could detect lies by reading tiny changes in brain activity. He hadn't told anyone about it yet, not even Marla. But today he wanted to test it. As the trial continued, Jamal listened carefully to every word. Something about the way people spoke felt off to him. When Clara Hayes talked about Carl looking angry, Jamal noticed her voice waver slightly. When Ron Miller described the loud crash, Jamal thought his hands twitched nervously. These little details caught Jamal's attention. Most people wouldn't have noticed, but Jamal had always been good at spotting patterns. Finally, it was Crixalar's turn to testify. The Vexari clicked and hummed as his translator turned his words into human speech. "I was speaking peacefully," Crixlar said. "Then suddenly, the human attacked me without reason." His tone sounded calm, almost rehearsed. Jamal frowned. He reached into his backpack and turned on his truth finder. The device began to blink faster, lighting up in a pattern Jamal recognized. It meant someone was lying. Jamal's heart raced. Could the Vexari really be lying? If so, that would change everything. But how could he prove it? Jamal glanced around the room. Everyone seemed focused on Crixlar's testimony. No one noticed the boy in the corner holding a blinking gadget. Jamal hesitated, unsure what to do. Should he stay quiet and let the trial continue? Or should he try to say something? Before he could decide, the judge called for a recess. Lawyers gathered their papers, reporters whispered excitedly, and the crowd filed out of the courtroom. Jamal stayed seated, staring at his device. Marla came over and touched his shoulder gently. "You okay, sweetie?" she asked. Jamal nodded but didn't answer. His mind was racing with possibilities. When the session resumed, the atmosphere grew even tenser. Both sides presented closing arguments passionately, each trying to convince the judge of their version of events. Finally, Judge Monroe leaned forward, ready to deliver her verdict. Just as she opened her mouth to speak, Jamal raised his hand timidly. Everyone turned to look at him. For a moment, the room fell completely silent. Even the hovering cameras paused mid-air. "Yes?" Judge Monroe asked, raising an eyebrow. Her voice softened slightly. "Do you have something to add, young man?" Jamal swallowed hard. His throat felt dry, but he forced himself to stand up. Walking slowly to the front of the room, he placed his truth finder on the table for everyone to see. This thing I made," he said softly. "It can tell if someone is telling the truth or not." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some people laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke. Others leaned forward, curious. Judge Monroe studied Jamal carefully. "Go on," she said. "What does your device say?" Jamal pointed at Crixlar. "He's lying," he said firmly, though his voice still trembled. "Officer Dunbar didn't do anything wrong. Someone else set him up." For a few seconds, no one spoke. Then chaos erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Aliens clicked and buzzed in confusion. Lawyers jumped to their feet, demanding explanations. Through all the noise, Jamal stood quietly, clutching his invention. Deep down, he knew he was right. And deep down, he hoped someone would believe him. The courtroom was loud and chaotic after Jamal spoke. Everyone seemed to have something to say. Reporters shouted questions at the judge. Lawyers argued with each other. And aliens clicked their mandibles or made strange noises in confusion. Judge Monroe raised her hand, trying to bring order back to the room. "Quiet," she called out sharply. Her voice echoed through the chaos, but it took a few moments for everyone to settle down. When the noise finally died down, Judge Monroe looked at Jamal. She studied him carefully, as if trying to decide whether to take him seriously. "Young man, she said, her tone firm but not unkind. Can you explain how your device works? Jamal nodded nervously. He held up the small box with blinking lights and wires sticking out of it. I built this, he said softly. It reads brain activity. When someone lies, their brain does something different. My machine can see that. Some people in the room laughed quietly, thinking it was impossible for a child to invent such a thing. Others leaned forward, curious to hear more. Judge Monroe frowned. Do you have proof that your device is accurate? She asked. Jamal hesitated. He didn't have any official tests or certificates to prove his invention worked. All he had was his own experiments in Marla's garage. But before he could answer, Marla stood up from her seat in the back of the room. Your Honor, she said, stepping forward, this boy is telling the truth. He's been working on that thing for months. I've seen it work myself. Marla's words carried weight because she seemed honest and calm. Judge Monroe nodded slowly. Very well, she said. We will test the device. If it proves reliable, we will use it to re-examine the evidence. The decision caused another wave of whispers and murmurs in the courtroom. Lawyers scribbled notes furiously, reporters adjusted their cameras, and aliens exchanged glances. No one had expected a child to change the course of a high-profile trial like this. Jamal returned to his seat, feeling both nervous and excited. He glanced at Marla, who gave him an encouraging smile. You did good, sweetie, she whispered. Now let's see what happens. The court recessed while technicians set up equipment to test Jamal's invention. They connected it to computers and ran simulations to check its accuracy. Jamal watched anxiously as experts poked and prodded his creation. He worried they might break it or find some flaw he hadn't noticed. But when the results came back, even the skeptics were surprised. The device worked perfectly. It could detect lies with remarkable precision. When the trial resumed, Judge Monroe announced the findings. The device presented by the young witness appears to function as claimed, she said. We will now use it to analyze the testimonies given during this trial. One by one, the witnesses were brought back to the stand. Each person placed their hand on a sensor connected to Jamal's invention. Lights blinked, and numbers scrolled across screens as the machine read their brain activity. At first, nothing unusual happened. Clara Hayes, the woman who said Carl looked angry, passed the test. So did Ron Miller, who talked about hearing a loud crash. But when it was Crixler's turn, the machine lit up brightly, signaling deception. A hush fell over the courtroom. Everyone turned to look at the Vexari diplomat. Crixler shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his long body twitching slightly. His translator hummed as he tried to speak. This cannot be correct, he said. I am innocent. But the machine didn't lie. It showed clear signs that Crixler had been dishonest. Judge Monroe ordered further investigation into his background. Within hours, investigators uncovered shocking information. Crixler wasn't just a regular diplomat. He was part of a radical group within the Vexari species that wanted to drive humans out of the Concord. They believed humans were too dangerous to trust and hoped to provoke conflict between Earth and the Alliance. The plan had been simple: stage a fake attack during the protest, blame it on a human officer, and make Earth look bad in front of the galaxy. Crixler admitted everything under questioning, though his confession came reluctantly. He claimed he had only followed orders from higher-ranking members of his faction. News of the conspiracy spread quickly. People outside the courthouse cheered when they heard the truth. Reporters rushed to update their stories, and alien observers sent urgent messages back to their home worlds. For the first time in weeks, humans felt a sense of pride and relief. Carl Dunbar wasn't guilty after all. He had been framed. As the trial wrapped up, Judge Monroe delivered her final verdict. Officer Carl Dunbar is exonerated of all charges, she declared. The real culprits are those who sought to undermine peace between our species. Justice has been served today, thanks in large part to the courage and ingenuity of one young boy. The crowd erupted into applause. Carl hugged his wife, Lisa, tears streaming down his face. He walked over to Jamal and knelt beside him. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You saved me today." Jamal blushed and shrugged. "I just wanted to help," he mumbled. After the trial ended, Jamal became the center of attention. Reporters surrounded him, asking questions about his invention and how he came up with the idea. Some aliens approached him too, their strange shapes looming over him curiously. One of them, a Zolari ambassador with shimmering blue skin, bent down to Jamal's level. "You are very clever," the alien said. "Your actions today have earned great respect for your kind." Jamal smiled shyly. He didn't feel like a hero, but he was glad he'd done the right thing. Marla stayed close by, making sure no one overwhelmed him. "Take it easy, folks," she told the reporters. "He's just a kid." Later that evening, Jamal and Marla went home together. Their apartment was small but cozy, filled with tools and gadgets from Marla's repair shop. Jamal flopped onto the couch, exhausted but happy. "Do you think anyone will believe me next time?" he joked. Marla laughed and ruffled his hair. "They'd be fools not to," she said. "You proved yourself today, kiddo." "You showed the whole galaxy what humans are capable of," Jamal thought about that for a moment. He liked the idea of showing aliens that humans weren't just fighters. They were thinkers and problem solvers too. Maybe his little invention could inspire others to build cool things and make the world better. Over the next few days, news of Jamal's role in the trial reached every corner of Earth and beyond. Schools taught lessons about him, calling him the boy who changed the galaxy. Artists painted pictures of him holding his invention, and musicians wrote songs praising his bravery. Even the United Earth Council invited him to speak at a special meeting. At the council session, Jamal stood nervously behind a podium, looking out at rows of important leaders. Cameras hovered above him, capturing every word. "I didn't do anything special," he began, his voice soft but steady. "I just used my brain and tried to tell the truth. Anyone can do that if they really want to." His speech moved many people. Some cried, others clapped loudly. Afterward, council members shook his hand and promised to support young inventors like him. They created a new program called the Young Minds Fund to help kids from all over Earth pursue their dreams in science and technology. Meanwhile, the Conquered started treating humans differently. Before, many aliens had doubted whether humans belonged in their alliance. Now they saw humans as valuable members, people who could solve problems creatively and bravely. Aliens began reaching out to collaborate on projects, sharing knowledge and resources with Earth. For Jamal, life changed in unexpected ways. A Zolari scientist offered to sponsor him in an interstellar youth academy, a school where gifted children from different planets learned advanced skills. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but it meant leaving Earth and traveling far away. Marla struggled with the decision. She had taken care of Jamal since he was little, and the thought of letting him go broke her heart. But she knew it was what he deserved. On the day Jamal left, Marla accompanied him to the spaceport. The ship waiting to take him to the academy gleamed silver in the sunlight. Its engines hummed softly as crew members prepared for departure. Jamal hugged Marla tightly, promising to write and visit whenever he could. "I'll miss you," he said, his eyes wet with tears. "I'll miss you too, sweetie," Marla replied. "But remember, you're doing this for all of us. Make us proud." As the ship lifted off, Jamal pressed his face against the window, waving goodbye. Below, Marla stood alone, watching until the ship disappeared into the sky. She wiped her tears and smiled. Jamal was going to change the stars now, just like he had changed the courtroom. Back on Earth, people continued to talk about Jamal's story. Teachers used it to encourage students to think big and dream bigger. Parents reminded their children that even the smallest voice could make a difference. And in New Chicago, the courthouse where it all began became a museum exhibit honoring Jamal's bravery. Years later, when Jamal returned to Earth as a grown man, he visited the museum. He walked past displays showing his old invention, newspaper articles about the trial, and videos of his speech at the council meeting. A little girl tugged at her mother's sleeve and pointed at him. "Mommy," she whispered. "That's the man who showed us that anyone can change the world." Jamal smiled, nodded, and kept walking. He knew his journey wasn't over yet. There were still challenges to face, mysteries to solve, and galaxies to explore. But wherever he went, he carried the lesson he'd learned as a boy. Sometimes loudest truth comes from the quietest voice. Jamal's journey didn't end with the trial. In fact, it was just the beginning. After the court case, his life changed in ways he never imagined. News of his invention spread quickly across Earth and even reached alien worlds. People everywhere were talking about the boy who used a simple machine to uncover the truth. Jamal became a symbol of hope, not just for humans but for anyone who believed that fairness and honesty mattered. The Interstellar Youth Academy offered Jamal a chance to learn things most people could only dream of. It was located on a space station orbiting a distant planet. The station itself was huge, shaped like a giant ring floating in the blackness of space. Inside there were classrooms, labs, and living quarters for students from all over the galaxy. Jamal felt nervous as he stepped off the ship that brought him there. He had never been away from Earth before, let alone among so many aliens. Other students at the academy came from different planets, each with their own strange customs and languages. Some had shiny scales, others glowed softly in the dark, and a few looked almost human except for small details like extra fingers or glowing eyes. At first, Jamal stayed quiet, unsure how to fit in. But soon, he realized everyone was just as curious about him as he was about them. One of the first friends Jamal made was a girl named Lyra. She was from a species called the Zinari, known for their ability to heal wounds with their hands. Lyra had pale green skin and hair that shimmered like water. She was kind and patient, always willing to explain things to Jamal when he didn't understand. "You're famous, you know," she told him one day during lunch. "Everyone here knows what you did back on Earth." Jamal shrugged. "I didn't do anything special," he said. "I just wanted to help." Lyra smiled. "That's what makes it special," she replied. "Not everyone tries to help." As the weeks went by, Jamal grew more comfortable at the academy. He attended classes on advanced science, engineering, and diplomacy. His favorite subject was xenotechnology, the study of machines built by alien species. He loved learning how different beings solved problems in unique ways. Sometimes he shared ideas from his own inventions, surprising his teachers with his creativity. But it wasn't all fun and games. The academy was challenging, and Jamal often stayed up late working on projects. One assignment required him to build a device that could communicate with plants. Plants on some alien worlds were intelligent and could respond to signals if you knew how to speak their language. Jamal spent hours tinkering with wires and circuits, trying to get his invention to work. When he finally succeeded, the plant, a tall, feathery creature with glowing leaves, waved its branches gently, as if saying thank you. Outside of class, Jamal explored the space station with Lyra and other friends. They visited observatories, where they could look out at the stars through giant windows. They played zero-gravity sports in a special arena where nothing weighed anything. Jamal laughed as he floated around, tossing a glowing ball to his teammates. For the first time in his life, he felt truly free. Back on Earth, Marla kept busy running her repair shop. She missed Jamal terribly but tried to stay positive. She followed his progress through messages and videos he sent regularly. In one video, Jamal showed her a robot he had built that could fix broken tools faster than any human. "This reminds me of your garage," he joked. "Maybe I'll bring it home someday to help you." Marha smiled as she watched the video. "You're making me proud, kiddo," she said aloud, even though Jamal couldn't hear her. Keep shining. While Jamal thrived at the academy, his story continued to inspire people on Earth. Schools began teaching lessons about his bravery and ingenuity. Teachers encouraged students to think creatively and solve problems like Jamal had done. Parents reminded their children that no matter how small they felt, they could still make a big difference. The United Earth Council also took action. Inspired by Jamal's success, they launched new programs to support young inventors. Workshops were set up in cities and towns where kids could learn about science and technology. Prizes were awarded to those who came up with innovative ideas. Many children dreamed of following in Jamal's footsteps, hoping to change the world themselves. Even aliens started seeing humans differently because of Jamal. Before, some species doubted whether humans belonged in the Concord. They thought humans were too violent or unpredictable, but Jamal proved that humans could be clever, compassionate, and trustworthy. Slowly, trust began to grow between humans and their galactic neighbors. At the Academy, Jamal learned not only about machines but also about relationships. He discovered that understanding others was just as important as building gadgets. During one lesson, a teacher explained how misunderstandings often caused conflicts between species. Communication is key, the teacher said. If we listen to each other, we can find solutions instead of fighting. Jamal remembered Krixlar, the Vexari diplomat who lied during the trial. If someone had listened to him earlier, maybe the whole situation could have been avoided. Jamal decided then that he wanted to help bridge gaps between species. He dreamed of creating tools that would allow humans and aliens to understand each other better. One day, Jamal got an opportunity to put his dream into action. A team of students was chosen to work on a project for the Concord. Their task was to design a universal translator, a device that could instantly translate any language, no matter how complex. Jamal was thrilled to be part of the team. He worked alongside Lyra and several others, brainstorming ideas and testing prototypes. The project was difficult. Some languages were based on sounds, others on colors or vibrations. Jamal suggested combining multiple technologies to handle all these differences. He used sensors similar to those in his truth finder to detect patterns in speech and movement. Slowly, the team made progress. By the time they finished, their translator could handle dozens of alien languages, and even some Earth dialects too. When the team presented their invention to the Concord leaders, they received a standing ovation. Aliens clicked, hummed, and cheered in approval. Humans clapped loudly, proud of what their young representative had achieved. Jamal stood quietly beside his teammates, feeling both amazed and humble. He hadn't done this alone, but he knew his contributions had made a difference. After the presentation, a Zalari ambassador approached Jamal. The Zalari were tall, slender beings with shimmering blue skin. This particular ambassador had glowing golden eyes that seemed to see right through you. "Your work is remarkable," the ambassador said. "It will change how we interact with each other." Jamal nodded. "Thank you," he replied. "I just want to help people understand each other better." The ambassador smiled, or at least it looked like a smile. "You already have," they said, "and there's more you can do." Those words stuck with Jamal. He realized his journey wasn't just about inventing cool gadgets. It was about bringing people and species together. Whether it was solving mysteries like the trial or building tools like the universal translator, everything he did aimed to create harmony. As months passed, Jamal grew more confident. He no longer felt like the shy boy who once sat quietly in a courtroom. Now he spoke up when he had ideas, shared his thoughts openly, and encouraged others to do the same. His friends admired him not just for his intelligence but for his heart. When the school year ended, Jamal returned to Earth for a short visit. Marla greeted him with open arms, tears streaming down her face. "Look at you," she said, holding him tightly. "You've grown so much." Jamal grinned. "I missed you too, Marla," he said. "But don't worry, I'm still the same kid who used to tinker in your garage." Together, they visited the museum where the courthouse exhibit was displayed. Jamal walked past photos of himself holding his truth finder, newspaper clippings, and videos of the trial. A group of children stared at him wide-eyed, whispering excitedly. One boy tugged at his mother's sleeve and pointed. "Is that really him?" he asked. Jamal knelt down to the boy's level. "Yeah, it's me," he said with a smile. "What's your name?" "Eli," the boy replied shyly. "Well, Eli," Jamal said, "if you ever have an idea or want to build something, don't be afraid to try. You never know what might happen. Eli nodded, his eyes shining with wonder. Jamal stood up and waved goodbye to the crowd before leaving with Marla. As they walked away, he felt grateful for everything he'd experienced. He knew his adventures were far from over, but he was ready for whatever came next. Jamal's story reminded everyone, humans and aliens alike, that courage and kindness could overcome even the toughest challenges. And sometimes the smallest voice could speak the loudest truth. Jamal's time at the Interstellar Academy taught him more than he ever imagined. He learned about science, technology, and diplomacy, but most importantly, he learned about connection. Connection between species, ideas, and hearts. His universal translator project had earned praise from humans and aliens alike, and it was being used across the Concord to improve communication. But Jamal knew this was just the beginning. There were still many problems in the galaxy that needed solving, and he wanted to be part of the solution. Back on Earth, Marla watched proudly as news of Jamal's achievements reached her. She saved every article and video she could find. Sometimes, late at night, she would sit in her garage surrounded by tools and spare parts and think about how far Jamal had come. From building gadgets in her tiny workshop to working with alien technology on a space station, his journey had been incredible. "That boy's going to change the stars," she often said to herself, smiling. At the academy, Jamal continued to work hard. His next big challenge came when the Concord announced a competition for young inventors. The goal was to create something that would benefit all species in the Alliance. Winners would receive funding to develop their ideas further and present them at a galactic conference. Jamal saw this as an opportunity to make a real difference. He spent weeks brainstorming ideas with Lyra and his other friends. They talked about everything from cleaning up space debris to finding new ways to grow food on barren planets. Finally, Jamal had an idea. "What if we could build a machine that helps heal damaged ecosystems?" he suggested. "Something that works on any planet, no matter what kind of life exists there." Lyra's eyes lit up. "That's brilliant," she said. "But how would it work?" Jamal explained his plan. The machine would use advanced sensors to analyze the environment, soil, air, water, plants, and animals. Then it would release tiny robots called nanobots to repair damage. These nanobots could adapt to different conditions, whether they were fixing polluted rivers on Earth or reviving dying forests on alien worlds. The team loved the idea and got to work right away. Jamal led the design process, sketching out blueprints and testing prototypes. Lyra helped program the nanobots, making sure they could respond to various environments. Other teammates contributed their skills too, from engineering to biology. Together, they built a device they called the Eco-Mender. When the competition day arrived, Jamal felt nervous but excited. Teams from all over the galaxy gathered in a massive arena filled with judges, reporters, and spectators. Each team had a chance to showcase their invention and explain how it worked. Some projects focused on energy solutions, others on medical advancements. But when it was Jamal's turn, the crowd fell silent. Jamal stepped onto the stage holding the Eco-Mender, a sleek silver device shaped like a sphere. Lights blinked softly on its surface and wires connected it to a display screen showing images of damaged ecosystems being restored. "This is the Eco-Mender," Jamal began, his voice steady despite his nerves. "It's designed to heal broken environments so life can thrive again." He demonstrated how the machine worked by simulating a polluted river. The Eco-Mender scanned the water, identified toxins, and released nanobots to clean it up. Within minutes, the virtual river sparkled clear and healthy. The audience gasped in amazement. Even the judges leaned forward, clearly impressed. After all the presentations, the judges retired to decide the winners. Jamal and his team waited anxiously, chatting quietly among themselves. "No matter what happens," Lyra said, "we should be proud of what we've done." Jamal nodded. "Yeah," he replied. "We gave it our best shot." Finally, the results were announced. The judges declared Jamal's team the winners. Their invention stood out because it addressed a problem, affecting countless planets, not just one species. The prize included funding to develop the Eco-Mender further, and an invitation to present it at the upcoming Galactic Conference. The victory brought even more attention to Jamal. Reporters interviewed him daily, asking about his inspiration and future plans. Aliens sent messages congratulating him, calling him a hero for thinking of the greater good. Back on Earth, schools added his name to textbooks and cities named parks after him. Marla joked that her garage might become a museum someday, but Jamal didn't let the fame go to his head. He stayed humble and focused on improving the eco-mender. With the funding from the competition, he and his team refined the design, making it smaller, faster, and more efficient. They tested it on several planets, including Earth, where it successfully revived areas affected by pollution and deforestation. As the Galactic Conference approached, Jamal prepared his presentation carefully. He wanted to show not only how the eco-mender worked, but also why it mattered. "We share this galaxy," he practiced saying. "If we take care of each other's homes, we'll all have a better future." The conference took place on a beautiful planet called Silora, known for its shimmering oceans and glowing trees. Leaders from every species in the Concord attended, along with scientists, diplomats, and innovators. Jamal stood nervously behind the podium, looking out at the vast crowd. Cameras hovered above him, capturing every moment. "This is the eco-mender," he began, holding up the device. "It's a tool for healing not just our planet but yours too." He showed videos of the eco-mender restoring damaged ecosystems, highlighting success stories from different worlds. The audience listened intently, their faces filled with hope. When Jamal finished speaking, the room erupted into applause. Aliens clicked, hummed, and cheered, while humans clapped loudly. A Vexari leader approached Jamal afterward, extending a long, thin arm in gratitude. "Your invention gives us hope," they said. "Thank you for thinking of all of us." Jamal smiled. "We're stronger together," he replied. "That's what I believe." After the conference, Jamal returned to the academy, ready to tackle new challenges. His success inspired other students to dream bigger and aim higher. Teachers encouraged everyone to follow Jamal's example, reminding them that innovation could change lives. Even aliens who had once doubted humans now saw them as valuable members of the Concord. Back on Earth, people celebrated Jamal's achievements in their own ways. Cities planted trees in his honor, naming them eco-mender. Groves. Schools held science fairs where students competed to create inventions inspired by Jamal's work. Parents told bedtime stories about the boy who healed the galaxy, hoping to inspire their children to dream big. Marla kept busy running her repair shop, but she often thought about Jamal. She missed him dearly, but was proud of the man he was becoming. In letters and video calls, he shared updates about his projects and adventures. "I'm learning so much, Marla," he said during one call. "And I couldn't have done any of this without you." Marla wiped away a tear. "You're my pride and joy, kiddo," she replied. "Keep shining." As months turned into years, Jamal grew into a respected figure in the galaxy. He traveled to distant planets, meeting leaders and sharing ideas. He worked alongside aliens to solve problems, always remembering the lessons he'd learned at the academy. Communication, compassion, and creativity were keys to building a better future. One day, Jamal received an invitation to join the Human Integration Committee of the Concord. This group worked to ensure humans played a fair and active role in the alliance. It was a huge responsibility, but Jamal accepted without hesitation. He knew this was his chance to help shape the relationship between humans and aliens. In his new role, Jamal faced tough decisions and complex challenges. Some species still distrusted humans, while others argued over resources and territory. But Jamal never lost sight of his goal: to bring people and beings together. He used his inventions and knowledge to bridge gaps, proving time and again that humans could be trusted allies. Years later, Jamal returned to Earth for a special ceremony honoring his contributions to the Concord. The United Earth Council awarded him a medal for bravery and ingenuity. As he stood on stage looking out at the cheering crowd, he thought about how far he'd come. From a quiet boy in a courtroom to a leader among the stars, his journey had been remarkable. A little girl in the audience tugged at her mother's sleeve and pointed at Jamal. "Is that really him?" she asked. Her mother smiled. "Yes, sweetie. That's the man who showed us that anyone can make a difference." Jamal heard the comment and grinned. He knelt down to the girl's level. "What's your name?" he asked. "Sophie," she replied shyly. "Well, Sophie," Jamal said, "if you ever have a dream or want to help someone, don't be afraid to try. You never know what might happen." Sophie nodded, her eyes wide with wonder. Jamal stood up and waved goodbye to the crowd before leaving with Marla. As they walked away, he felt grateful for everything he'd experienced. He knew his adventures were far from over, but he was ready for whatever came next. Jamal's story reminded everyone, humans and aliens alike, that courage and kindness could overcome even the toughest challenges. And sometimes, the smallest voice could speak the loudest truth. Jamal's role in the Human Integration Committee of the Concorde gave him a new purpose. He spent his days traveling between planets, meeting with leaders, and solving problems that affected both humans and aliens. His inventions, like the eco-mender and the universal translator, had already made a big impact, but Jamal knew there was still much work to do. Every decision he made aimed to bring people closer together, showing that trust and teamwork could overcome even the toughest challenges. 1 day, Jamal received an urgent message from the Concorde headquarters. A crisis had arisen on a distant planet called Valon. The Valonians were a peaceful species who lived in harmony with their environment. But recently, strange machines had appeared in their skies. These machines disrupted the planet's weather, patterns causing storms and floods that threatened the Valonians' way of life. No one knew where the machines came from or why they were attacking. The Concorde asked Jamal to investigate. He agreed immediately, knowing this was a chance to help not just the Valonians but also the galaxy as a whole. If these machines weren't stopped, they might spread to other planets, causing chaos everywhere. Jamal packed his tools and boarded a ship bound for Valon. Along the way, he studied reports about the mysterious machines. They were sleek and metallic, moving silently through the air. Some witnesses said they looked like giant insects with glowing eyes. Others claimed they heard strange humming sounds whenever the machines passed overhead. Whatever they were, they seemed advanced, too advanced for any known species in the Concorde. When Jamal arrived on Valon, he was greeted by a group of Valonian leaders. The Valonians were tall and slender, with skin that shimmered like water, under sunlight. Their voices sounded musical, almost like singing. They explained how the machines had appeared suddenly, ruining crops, flooding villages, and scaring their animals. "We don't know what to do," one leader said sadly. "Our world is dying." Jamal promised to help. He began by examining the damage caused by the machines. Rivers overflowed their banks, fields lay submerged in water, and trees bent under the weight of heavy winds. It was clear the machines were targeting the planet's natural systems, throwing them out of balance. But why? And who was behind it? Jamal set up equipment to study the machines. He used sensors to track their movements and record data about their structure. Lyra joined him remotely via hologram, helping analyze the information. Together they discovered something alarming. The machines weren't just random attackers. They were programmed to destroy ecosystems systematically, as if someone wanted to erase all life from Valon. "This doesn't make sense," Lyra said during one of their calls. "Who would want to hurt the Valonians? They've never harmed anyone." "I don't think it's personal," Jamal replied. "I think someone is testing these machines, using Valon as practice." Lyra gasped. "You mean they might attack other planets next?" Jamal nodded grimly. "That's what I'm afraid of." Determined to stop the threat, Jamal worked tirelessly. He built a device to interfere with the machine's programming. It emitted a signal that confused their systems, forcing them to shut down temporarily. With the help of the Valonians, Jamal deployed the device across the planet. Jamal's device worked, but it wasn't a permanent solution. The machines shut down temporarily, giving the Valonians some relief. But Jamal knew they would reactivate eventually. Whoever was behind them had built them to be resilient, and stopping them completely required finding their source. Jamal decided to take a bold step. He would follow the machine's signal back to where they came from. With the help of the Valonians, Jamal tracked the machine's communication signals. They led him to a hidden base orbiting a distant moon. The base was heavily guarded with alien ships patrolling the area. Jamal didn't have time to gather reinforcements, so he devised a plan to sneak inside. Using a small cloaked drone he sent it ahead to scout the base and find weaknesses in its defenses. The drone returned with valuable information. It revealed that the base belonged to a rogue faction of the Zenari, the same species as Lyra. These Zenari had split from their peaceful counterparts long ago, believing that power and control were more important than harmony. They had created the machines to test their ability to destroy ecosystems, hoping to use them as weapons against other species. Jamal contacted the Concord immediately, sharing what he had discovered. The leaders were shocked and angered by the betrayal. A team of envoys, including Jamal, was sent to confront the rogue Zenari. They arrived at the base aboard a Concord ship, demanding answers. The leader of the rogue Zenari, a tall figure with glowing green eyes, met them in the main chamber. "You have no right to interfere," he said coldly. "Our creations are none of your concern." Jamal stepped forward, his voice steady despite the tension in the room. "Your creations are destroying innocent lives," he said. "If you don't stop them, you'll start a war no one can win," the Zenari leader sneered. "War is inevitable. The strong survive and the weak perish. That is the way of the galaxy." Jamal shook his head. "That's not true. We've proven that working together makes us stronger. You don't have to do this." For a moment, the room was silent. Then the Zenari leader turned away, deep in thought. Finally, he spoke. "If you truly believe in unity, then prove it. Show us that cooperation is better than domination." Jamal agreed, knowing this was his chance to change their minds. He proposed a joint project between the rogue Zenari and the Concord, a mission to restore the damaged ecosystems on Valon. If the Zenari helped repair what they had broken, they could see firsthand the value of working together. Reluctantly, the Zenari leader agreed. Over the next few weeks, Jamal led a team of humans, aliens, and rogue Zenari to Valon. They used the Ecomender to heal the planet's rivers, forests, and fields. Slowly, life began to return. The Valonians watched in awe as their world was reborn, and even the rogue Zenari seemed moved by the results. When the project was complete, the Zenari leader approached Jamal. "You were right," he admitted. "We underestimated the power of unity. From now on, we will seek peace instead of conflict." The Concord celebrated the resolution, praising Jamal for his bravery and diplomacy. His actions had not only saved Valon, but also brought a dangerous faction back into the fold. Once again, he had shown that even the smallest efforts could lead to big changes. Years passed, and Jamal continued to work for the Concord. He traveled across the galaxy, solving problems and building bridges between species. His inventions became the foundation for new technologies that improved life everywhere. Schools taught lessons about his achievements, and statues were erected in his honor. But Jamal never let fame go to his head. He remained humble, always remembering the lessons he had learned as a boy. One day, Jamal returned to Earth for a special ceremony. The courthouse where the trial had taken place was now a museum dedicated to justice and truth. Inside, exhibits showcased his journey, from the courtroom to the stars. As he walked through the museum, Jamal felt a deep sense of gratitude. He had come so far, but he knew his work was far from over. A group of children surrounded him, asking questions about his adventures. One little girl tugged at his sleeve. "Can anyone really change the world?" she asked. Jamal knelt down to her level and smiled. "Yes," he said. "Anyone can. All you need is courage and a good idea." The girl beamed, her eyes filled with wonder. Jamal stood up and waved goodbye to the crowd before leaving with Marla. As they walked away, he felt a sense of peace. He had done his part to make the galaxy a better place, and now it was someone else's turn to carry the torch. Jamal's story reminded everyone, humans and aliens alike, that kindness and ingenuity could overcome even the toughest challenges. And sometimes the smallest voice could speak the loudest truth. Marla watched Jamal as they drove home, pride shining in her eyes. "You've done so much, kiddo," she said. "What's next for you?" Jamal looked out the window at the stars twinkling in the night sky. "I don't know yet," he replied, "but wherever I go, I'll keep trying to make things better." And with that, Jamal prepared for whatever adventure awaited him next. His journey had been incredible, but he knew the galaxy still held many mysteries to solve and many hearts to connect. As long as there were problems to fix and people to help, Jamal would be there, ready to shine his light.